Here with another episode of Chordplay, and this is the Chords of TNT. And TNT is a Norwegian band that became very popular in the mid to late 80s. And they found success in Europe, and they found success in Japan, and moderate success in the US. And for most, rock and metalhead fans, their second album, Nights of New Thunder, which came out in 1984, that had the song, Seven Seas. And I've met so many people that don't really know TNT, but they know that song, and then they kind of piece it together, and it's like, oh, it's that band, okay, TNT. So it seems like everybody kind of remembers Seven Seas from back in the day. And then in '87 they had an album called Tell No Tales. In '89 they had an album called Intuition, and then in '92 they had an album called Realized Fantasies. And all four of those albums I highly recommend to anybody watching this that doesn't really know the band TNT. Now on guitar we have the marvelous Ronni Le Tekro, and Ronnie is definitely a very interesting and unique and inspiring guitarist. If you haven't really heard him play before, he's just a ball of energy. It's random, spastic, it's kind of almost like classical shred and rock, kind of ADD metal or whatever, because he's a very melodic guitarist. There's always some soaring, beautiful, melody, but then he shreds like nobody's business, and he does all these very unorthodox things when he plays. And as soon as I heard their music and I heard him play guitar, I was immediately a fan. I was like, okay, I don't know who this is or who that guy is, but I like this. All right, with the intro there, that was the song 10,000 Lovers, which is from the album Tell No Tales. And it's interesting because he's kind of playing with an A major kind of piece of a triad, just an A and a C sharp. He's also kind of flirting with the sus4, that D note right there. But he's playing that off of the low E string. So it's kind of an A over E, and then an A sus4 over E. And then he's kind of mixing in these single notes too. So slowly, see, he's really just bouncing off that low E string, and he's playing with those little double stops there, or those little two note dyads. And then he does this cool kind of typical single note run, but it's busy and it kind of falls rhythmically in an interesting place too. So he's kind of timed that perfectly for that low E string. Like that. And he's got this little 4-note tag. And then the second time through, he changes that little tag. Instead of this, he starts doing, so he just added a little bit more to it. And then the last time he just kind of walks down to E. And that's going to move into the verse. But that's a really cool guitar riff, and it's bouncy and kind of playful, and I've always liked it. Really cool song too. The next example is from the song Forever Shine On, which is from the album Intuition, and it looks and sounds like this. very busy riff too, and you can hear it kind of bounces and plays off that E power chord, you know, an open position right there. Kind of walking down, you know, chromatically almost on that A string. And he kind of puts like a little hiccup in there too, which is really cool. Right there. Really cool riff and a killer song too. Next idea is from the song Tell No Tales, which is the title song from the album Tell No Tales, and this is brutally fast, and there's basically three, you know, kind of higher end or higher, you know, position power chords, an A, a G, and an F, and we're also going to basically be kind of tremolo picking that open A string, and then there's a single note run that kind of fills in at the end. And the interesting thing about this riff is you actually, I mean, this is just kind of a recommendation. You can play it however you want. But I found picking the chords with an upstroke and then starting the open A string with a downstroke. Something like that. And at the end right there, he's, you know, walking down those chords. Let me slow that down again. So start with an upstroke. And if you're looking for a good, you know, picking exercise, you know, that's a great one, you know, good warm-up exercise, you know, just to get that right hand moving. All right, we just looked at the title track from Tell No Tales, and now we're going to look at the title track from Intuition. So this is the song Intuition, and this was kind of a moderate hit, you know, when it came out in the late 80s. And I do remember the video popping up, you know, Headbanger's Ball, and kind of seeing, you know, the video for this. But I really am a big fan of chord progressions and rhythms like this. Because there's an underlying, you know, melodic theme under the chords. And you're just going to hear this little double stop kind of move around. So that's going to stay the whole time pretty much. But what changes is the root note, you know, the lowest note. So it's going to start on a G, and that's going to create, you know, a G5 and a G major 7 implied. And then it's going to move to where you're using the low E string open as the root. And then that's going to change that to an E minor 7 and an E minor 9. And then it's going to move to a C. So that's a big stretch, because you basically have 2 frets in between the fretted part and the root note there. And that would basically be like a C9 and then a C sharp 11. Really interesting. And it just kind of ends with like a D power chord to a G power chord to a C. And you put all that together. Alright, I've saved the best for last, or at least one of my personal favorites. This is from Desperate Night. And Desperate Night has this really busy, kind of aggressive rhythm style. And the first time I ever heard the song, the riff just grabbed me. And I thought, wow. And then when I actually sat there and kind of revealed, what he was doing, it wasn't anywhere near as hard as I thought it was, because it sounds real busy and it's just moving along. And it's very intense, when you hear the riff, but it's really not that hard to play. Really cool riff. So it's based around an A power chord in the beginning, and he's hammering on, from the open strings. And there it's, going from an A power chord to an A minor 7, and then an A7 sus2. So he's kind of flirting with those 3 different chords. And then it's going to flip to E. And then there he's kind of grabbing like an E sus4, and that's like an E minor 7. And he's just kind of doing some single notes there. Kind of grabs the pinch, on that final D right there. And then it's just basically a C power chord to G, and then a D to a C to an A. Love that riff. Alright, that's going to wrap this look at the Chords of TNT, and as you could probably tell, I'm a pretty big fan. And honestly, I'm going to go ahead and admit, the last 48 hours, I've just basically been revisiting and listening and watching and learning, some music from TNT. And very inspiring band, and I definitely loved them, back when I was a younger, guitarist and kind of in high school and stuff. And time got away from me, and I really hadn't listened to TNT in years. And the last 48 hours have been, just a great, blast from the past, because, it reminded me how much I loved his guitar playing, his solos, his riffs, his rhythms, and just a really exciting guitar player. So leave me some feedback and comments, and please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more material. Thank you.